The alien market was loud, full of smoke and shouting, but in the center of it all, there was silence around one cage. People stood back. No one dared to step too close. Inside the metal bars was a young alien girl, chained by her wrists and ankles. Her skin was marked with dirt and bruises. Her eyes glowed faint blue, and they were filled with fire, not fear. She didn't speak. She didn't beg. She sat in the corner of the cage like a wild animal, watching everyone. Her sharp nails scratched the floor. Her white hair was messy, hanging in her face. A few traders laughed and called her the Beast. Some whispered she was cursed. Others said she had killed her first owner. The auctioneer stood tall on a platform beside the cage and banged his wooden staff. Next up, he shouted, is a rare one. Wild-born, jungle-blooded, dangerous, yes but strong, fast, untouched. Starting price 1,000 credits. No one raised a hand. No one said a word. The silence was thick. She's a fighter, the auctioneer said. But train her. Right? And she obey. Still, the crowd was afraid. Some stepped away. A rich merchant whispered to his guard, not worth it. She claw your throat in your sleep. Inside the cage, the alien girl pulled at her chains. She growled, low and deep. Her teeth were sharp. Her eyes didn't blink. She looked like she would rather die than bow. Then a voice came from the back of the crowd. I'll take her, the voice said calmly. Everyone turned. It was a human mantle. Simple clothes, a long coat with dust from travel. His face was tired, but not weak. He stepped forward slowly, looking right at the girl. She's not trained, the auctioneer warned. She's broken, wild. I know, the human said. That's why I want her, the crowd began to whisper. Was he insane or stupid? He looked poor. He carried no weapon. But he walked up to the cage and stood just one step away from the way. Bars, the girl stared at him. She didn't move. Her eyes narrowed. The auctioneer shouted, final call. Going once, going twice, sold to the human. Chains rattled as the guards moved in. They opened the cage slowly, ready for her to strike. But the girl didn't fight. She kept her eyes on the human. Her muscles were tight, ready to spring, but she waited. The guards unlocked her chains and pulled her out. She stumbled knees. Weak, but kept her head high. Payment, the auctioneer demanded. The human opened a worn pouch and dropped every coin he had on the table. Gold, silver, crystal, credits, his whole savings. The trader looked surprised but nodded, done. Girl was pushed toward him. She stopped, shoulders shaking, chest rising with sharp breaths. She was used to beatings, not silence. No man had ever looked at her like this human did, not with hunger, not with fear. Just calm eyes. She reached forward fast. The guards jumped, but she didn't strike him. She touched the edge of his coat, then let go. Her fingers trembled. She didn't understand what he was. Do you speak? The human asked her gently. She gave no answer. Her mouth stayed closed, lips tight. Can you walk? He asked again, still no reply. But she didn't fall. She stood, back straight, like she was ready for war. The human turned and said, let's go. He didn't pull her. He didn't tie her up. Just walked ahead, trusting her to follow. She stood there for a moment. 1 second, 2, 3. Then she took one slow step behind. Him, the crowd parted as they passed. No one said a word. Some looked at the human with pity. Others with fear. Few even laughed behind his back. But he didn't stop. And the girl? She didn't growl. She didn't run. She walked. Eyes locked on his back, trying to understand who. Buys a wild creature, pays everything he has, and gives her no cage? By the time they left the market, the sun had started to set. The sky turned purple and gold. Her bare feet touched the ground with quiet steps. The chain marks on her skin still burned. But something inside her chest burned even more, a strange heat. She had never felt before. She didn't know what it was. But she kept walking, following the human, not as a slave, not as an animal, but as something else, something she couldn't name yet. Not yet, but soon, very soon. Asterisk. The stars were out by the time they reached the edge of the city. The wind was cold, brushing against the alien girl's bare arms. Still, she followed the human, never asking where they were going. Her feet hurt, but she didn't complain. She didn't speak at all. He led her to a small transport parked in the shadows behind a rock wall. It wasn't fancy. The paint was scratched. One engine panel was loose, but it looked warm inside. The man stepped in and opened the door wider, then looked back. "You coming in?" he asked. She looked at the door, then at him. It wasn't locked. He wasn't holding a weapon. She waited for a trap, a cage, a shot collar. Nothing came. Slowly, she stepped inside. The lights were soft, yellow, and warm, not harsh like the auction house. There was a seat with a thick blanket. The human handed it to her. She stared at it like it was a puzzle. "It's for you," he said. "You're cold." She didn't understand why he was being kind. She waited for him to change. He didn't. Took off his coat and tossed it aside, then moved to the controls. The ship hummed to life as they lifted off the ground. The girl sat in the corner with the blanket wrapped tight. Her eyes scanned every detail of the cabin, looking for danger. But it was quiet. He glanced back at her and said, "Name's Kaylin. You don't have to tell me yours." "Not yet." She didn't answer. Her body stayed tense, like a spring ready to snap. The human didn't press. He focused on flying. They left the city behind, heading toward the mountains. Hours passed in silence. Then the ship landed near a cliff where the stars looked brighter than ever. There was a small shelter built into the rock. It had a roof made of metal sheets and a solar heater on the side. Inside were a table, a bed, tools, and food. He let her step in first. No locks, no orders, no chains. The girl stepped inside like it was a dream. Her glowing eyes moved from corner to corner. It was the first time she had seen a room without bars. He pointed to a smaller room to the side. "You can sleep there. It's clean. No one will bother you." She walked in slowly. There was a soft bed, a water bowl, even clothes. She picked up a shirt and sniffed it. It smelled like sun and dust, not chemicals or blood. She stood frozen for a while, holding the cloth in her hands. Her mind was trying to make sense of it. Why? Why give her this? Kaylin stepped back and said, "I'm going to sleep now. You can eat whenever." Food's on the table. He didn't watch her. Didn't wait to see if she obeyed. He just left her alone. The girl sat on the bed. She didn't sleep. She watched him through the thin crack in the door. He lay down on his bed and didn't move. His breathing slowed. He had nothing to protect him, no locks, no shields. She could kill him in seconds. She could run, but she'd instead. Instead, she got up, walked to the food, and picked up a fruit. It was sweet. She hadn't tasted something like that in years. Next morning, Kaylin woke to find her sitting on the floor near the table, wrapped in the blanket, staring at the rising sun. She hadn't run. She hadn't stolen anything. He made tea and asked, "Do you want some?" She didn't answer. But she didn't look away either. He set a cup on the table near her. Steam curled into the air. She reached out slowly, hands shaking, and took the cup. Her voice was low, barely a whisper, but he heard it. "Why?" she asked. Kaylin didn't act surprised. He looked her in the eyes and said, "Because I saw someone no one else wanted to see." She frowned. "You paid everything?" He nodded. "Some things are worth more than money." She stared at him. No one had ever said that to her before. She wasn't used to being seen as anything but a tool or a threat. She finished the tea then. She said, "I don't have a name." Kaylin smiled, "And let's find one together." The alien girl looked outside at the open, land beyond the shelter. She didn't belong in chains anymore, but she didn't know where she belonged now, still. Something inside her had changed. For the first time in her life, she felt something close. To safety, not fully, not yet. But maybe it was a start, and maybe the price he paid wasn't for a slave, but for a soul. She waited until the wind was loud outside. Kaylin was asleep, lying on his side with one arm over his eyes. The room was warm, safe, but her heart raced like a trapped animal. The wild part inside her whispered, "Run, before he changes." She had seen kind faces turn cruel before. No one ever stayed kind forever. She moved silently. Her bare feet made no sound on the stone floor. She grabbed a small knife from the table. Didn't know what she'd do with it, but it felt better to hold something sharp. She crept toward the door. It wasn't locked. That made her stop. No cage, no guards, no wires, just a door. Real door. A free door. She opened it slowly. The cold night air rushed in like freedom. She didn't look back. She ran, through the rocky path, across the frost-covered grass, into the dark woods. Her legs burned, lungs gasped, but she didn't stop. Stars above blinked as she vanished into the alien wilderness. Branches tore her arms. Her feet bled, but she smiled. She was outside. She was alone. That was how she had survived before, and how she would survive again. She found a deep hollow under a tree and curled up. The forest was deadly, but she didn't fear it. She had lived in worse. At least out here she knew the rules. Hunt or be hunted. No surprises. No kindness. Then the sounds changed. A low growl, sharp eyes watching her from the dark. A predator. She leaped to her feet. Ready to fight, but the creature was fast twice her size, with teeth like swords. She dodged the first lunge, but its claw tore her side. She rolled, panting, knife shaking in her hand. The beast circled. She gritted her teeth and waited, but before it could strike again, a gunshot cracked through the night. The creature screamed and ran into the shadows. She turned, blood dripping down her arm. There, standing in the cold, with his coat flapping in the wind, is Kalen. He held the old blaster in one hand, breathing hard. Snow stuck to his hair. He looked at her, hurt, angry, and still. Worried. You shouldn't be out here, he said. She dropped the knife. You followed me? She said, voice thin. He walked to her slowly and took off his coat. She didn't stop him as he wrapped it around her. You ran, he said. Why? Looked away, because I'm not used to warm places. He didn't ask more. He just said, let's go home. Home. That word hit her chest like thunder. She tried to stand, but her leg gave out. Kalen caught her before she hit the ground. She expected him to scold her, maybe yell, but he only picked her up like she weighed nothing. She felt her face press against his chest. His heartbeat was steady. No one had ever come after her before. No one. When they reached the shelter again, he cleaned her wounds gently. His hands moved slow, careful, like he was fixing something fragile. She watched him through half-closed eyes, her mind spun in confusion. This was not how it was supposed to go. She was the runaway, the beast, the untamable. Yet here she was, letting him hold her, heal her. Later, sat across the room and asked, Do you hate me for bringing you back? She shook her head. I don't understand you, she said. I don't want to own you. He replied, I just want you to live. She looked down at her bandaged arm. You paid everything I did. For what? He didn't answer right away. Then he said to stop looking away when no one else would help. Her throat tightened. She had spent her whole life fighting for air, for space, for food. No one had ever fought for her. Not like this. She stood up, walked to the door, and opened it, not to run, but just to feel the wind. She turned back and said, I'll stay tonight, Kalen. Nodded once. That's all I ask. She closed the door gently. Not locked. Still open. But this time, she stayed by choice. And in her heart, for the first time, she felt something strange growing. Not fear, not hate, but a tiny root of trust. It was small. It was new, but it was hers. The sun peeked over the cliff, spreading gold light across the shelter. She was already awake, sitting by the window with her legs pulled to her chest. Her side still hurt where the beast had clawed her, but it was healing. Kalen's bandages were strong, and the salve he used smelled like leaves and fire. He walked past her, holding a mug of hot water with herbs. He didn't speak. He just placed it beside her and walked away. She looked down at the mug. Steam rose. She touched it, felt the warmth, then picked it up and sipped slowly. This was not how masters treated slaves. This was not how humans treated wild creatures, and she was starting to forget which one of them truly lived like an animal. After breakfast, Kalen started work on a damaged drone. He didn't ask for her help, but she walked over anyway, crouched beside him, and watched. He handed her a wire. She looked at him, confused. "It connects here," he said, pointing. "Power to the lens." She didn't speak, but her fingers moved carefully. She copied what he showed her. He smiled. "You learn fast," he said. That made her chest feel warm again. She didn't know why. Every day she picked up more words. Simple ones. Hot food. Fix light. Safe. She practiced them at night, whispering them to herself under the blanket. Each word felt like a small stone she was placing into a path she never thought she'd walk. Kalen never forced her to talk. He listened when she did. And when she didn't, he gave her space. One day she pointed at herself and said, "No name." Kalen looked at her for a long time. "You don't need a name," he said, "but you deserve one." She tilted her head. He thought for a moment, then said, "What about Mira? It means light in the dark in my old language." She repeated it softly. Mira. It felt strange on her tongue, but not bad. She didn't say yes. But the next time he called her Mira, she didn't correct him. That night, a merchant arrived on, old friend of Kalen's. He came to trade supplies and stayed for dinner. When he saw Mira, he raised his eyebrows. "Is that the girl from the auction?" he asked. Kalen nodded. "She's living here," the merchant asked. "You trust her not to stab you?" Kalen looked across the table. Mira sat quietly, sipping tea, her sharp eyes watching everything. "She's not a weapon," Kalen said. "She's a person," the merchant laughed. "You're soft." Kalen shrugged. "Maybe." Then the merchant reached across the table, tried to touch Mira's chin, to see her face better. She stiffened, but before she could react, Kalen's hand grabbed the merchant's wrist midair. "Don't touch her," Kalen said, calm but firm. The merchant blinked. "It's fine, I wasn't. I said don't." Mira watched them both, eyes wide. Not with fear, something else, something deeper. She had never seen a male defend her without trying to own her. When the merchant left, Kalen didn't talk about it, but Mira did. She sat beside him that night by the fire and said, "You stopped him." He nodded. "Double quotes, no one ever stops," she whispered. "Only take," he replied. "Why?" Kalen looked into the fire. "Because I've seen what taking does. I'm tired of watching the world break people." Myra was silent. For a long time, then, very softly, she said, "Mira is okay." Kalen smiled. "Then Mira it is." She lay her head against the wall and closed her eyes. She didn't realize she was smiling too. The next morning, she helped with repairs. She spoke 3 more words. It was small but real. Later, as she washed her hands outside, she looked at the sky. 2 moons were rising. The stars blinked down, and in that quiet moment, she whispered to the wind, "I'm not a cage girl anymore." The wind didn't answer, but the fire inside her did. She was learning the language of trust, and for the first time in her life, she was learning who she really was. The cold wind brought an old sentier and oil smoke. Mira smelled it before Kalen did. She was outside gathering firewood when her whole body went still. Her eyes narrowed, her breathing changed. The scent on the wind was not the mountain air. She had learned to trust. It was a memory, a nightmare. She dropped the wood and ran to the shelter. "Kalen," she said, breath sharp, voice shaking. "Bad men. Near." He looked up from his tools, saw her face, and knew she wasn't wrong. "How many?" he asked. She closed her eyes, sniffed the air again. 3, maybe 4. Smell like chains. "The power cell." "Get inside," he told her. But Myra didn't move. She said, "They're here for me." Before Kalen could answer, a loud knock hit the metal door. Boom, boom, boom. A rough voice shouted, "We're not here to hurt you, human. Just give us the girl." Mira backed away. Her hands shook, but her eyes were sharp. She remembered those voices. They used to shout orders, used to laugh when she cried. Kalen stepped toward the door but didn't open it. "She's not yours," he called out. A short silence followed. Then a different voice replied, slower, colder. "She's a wild breed. She doesn't belong in a home. She belongs in a cage." Mira growled under her breath. Kalen looked at her. "We don't have to fight, we can run." But Mira shook her head. "If we run, they follow." She walked over to the corner, where she kept her knife, the same one she used on her first night here. Kalen put a hand on her arm. "You don't have to go back to that." "I'm not going back," she said. "I'm ending it." The door slammed again. Kalen motioned her to stay behind him. He stepped out first. The three slavers stood with weapons ready. Their eyes lit up when they saw Mira behind Kalen. "There she is," one said. "I told you she was still alive." "She's not going with you," Kalen said. The tallest one laughed. "You gonna stop us?" Kalen aimed his rifle.
"Try me."
Suddenly, one of them rushed forward, before Kalen could fire. Mira darted past him. She moved like lightning, low, fast, wild. She tackled the first slaver to the ground, punching hard, her eyes glowing with fury. Blood splashed across the snow. The others shouted and raised their guns, but Kalen fired 2 quick blasts. One shot hit a weapon, the other missed, but it was enough to make them fall back. Mira spun, kicked the second man in the stomach, then flipped back beside Kalen. Her breathing was fast. Her lip was cut. Her hands were red, but she wasn't afraid. "You want a cage?" she shouted. "Come try." The last man looked into her eyes and saw something he hadn't seen before. She wasn't the broken girl they had taken years ago. She was free now. They turned and ran, cowards. Mira dropped the knife and collapsed to her knees. Kalen rushed over. "You're hurt," he said. "No," she panted. "I'm alive." He helped her up, gently. His hand pressed on her shoulder. "Why didn't you hide?" he asked. She looked up at him, fierce and proud. "Because this is my place now. You gave it to me. I won't let them take it." That night, she sat by the fire, blood cleaned from her skin, wearing one of Kalen's old jackets. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, "I was always running before, from cages, from chains, from men like them." Kalen nodded. "You don't have to run anymore." She looked into the fire. "No," she said. "Now they run from me." He smiled. "You scared me a little out there." Mira smiled too. "I scared myself. You're outside." The stars were quiet. The snow was still, inside. A girl who once believed she was nothing more than a beast had chosen to stand and fight, not as prey, not as property, but as a protector of her own life. Kalen watched her carefully. She wasn't wild anymore. She was something stronger, something fearless, something free. Asterisk. The snow had melted by morning. Water dripped from the edge of the shelter's roof as warm air pushed through the mountains. Mira stood outside, face turned toward the sun, eyes closed. For once, she wasn't tense. Her breathing was calm. She looked peaceful, but inside, something was changing. She had slept through the night. No nightmares, no running, no cold metal on her skin, just silence and warmth. Kalen watched her from the workbench, fixing a cracked energy cell, but mostly watching her. She looked older, now stronger, like someone who had survived a storm and come out shining when she came back inside. She held something small in her hand, a stone, smooth and blue. She placed it on the table between them. "My tribe used these," she said quietly to Mark. "Stories." Kalen looked at the stone, then at her. "You've never told me yours," he said. She sat down. Her fingers rested on the stone, slowly moving over its shape. "I come from a moon called Triel," she said, "covered in trees that touch the clouds. My people lived in the high roots, between light and dark." She paused. Hunters came. Men with ships and guns. They said we were rare, beautiful, worth something. Kalen didn't speak. They took. "Me, when I was small," she continued, "I tried to fight, bit one of them. They called me wild. They beat me until I forgot my name. Her hand clenched the stone tighter. I wasn't a slave. I was a daughter, a future voice of my people. My mother was a keeper of stories. She told me I would carry them one day. She took a breath. Her voice shook. But when they chained me, I stopped remembering the stories. I stopped speaking. I thought, if I forgot, maybe it would hurt less. Kaylin leaned closer. You remembered now. She looked at him, eyes glowing soft blue. Yes, she whispered, because someone treated me like a person again. Reached across the table and gently placed his hand over hers. You are a person. You always were. She nodded once, then placed the blue stone into his palm. This is yours, she said. It's not as payment, as a bond. He looked down at the stone, confused. In my tribe, she explained, we give these to those we trust. It means I carry your name inside me. Kaylin didn't speak. For a long moment, he only stared at the stone, heart beating louder than usual. I don't have anything to give back, he said. You gave me freedom, Mira replied. I'm just showing you that it mattered. Later that day, she climbed the mountain trail alone. Kaylin watched her go, but didn't stop her at the top. She stood beneath a tall cliff, where the wind howled like an old voice. She placed her hand on the rock and began to whisper words from her tribe's tongues, low, broken. But real? She remembered the chants, the blessings, the names of those who were taken. And then she added one more name, her own, Mira, said her real name, her new name. She was no longer the girl in the Da. Caged, no longer the creature traders called beast. She was real blood and human chosen. When she came back down, Kaylin was building a small greenhouse for herbs. She walked up beside him, not saying anything. He handed her a tool without looking. Good trip? He asked. She smiled. Yes. Find anything useful? She held out a small bag of glowing seeds. Medicine plants, she said. Grow fast. Save lives. He looked at her with a curious smile. You're full of surprises. She looked back, serious now. I'm full of stories, she said, and I want to start writing them again. He nodded. We'll make space for that. That night, she carved her tribe's symbols into the inside wall of the shelter next to the door, where they'd be seen every morning. Kaylin stood behind her, reading them even though he didn't know what they meant. What does that one mean? He asked. She looked over her shoulder. It means home, she answered. Kaylin smiled, soft and quiet. You're home now, he said. She nodded, but deep inside, something else had started. Not just trust, not just healing, but purpose. Would remember her people. She would carry their songs. And one day, others would know her story too. The wild girl was no longer running. Now she was ready to stand tall. Rain fell that morning, soft and steady, painting the mountains in mist. Myra stood outside with her head tilted back, letting the drops wash over her face. The water was cold, but she didn't shiver. This wasn't the kind of cold she had once. Feared it was clean, gentle, alive. Every drop felt like a quiet promise. Inside the shelter, Kaylin coughed again. It was the third day. Mira had noticed his skin had lost color. He moved slower. His hands sometimes shook while working. He tried to hide it, but he couldn't hide it from her. He always said it's nothing, just tired. But today, when she brought him tea, he collapsed to his knees. She caught him before he hit the ground. His breath was short. His forehead burned. Kaylin, she said, shaking him. What's happening? He tried to speak. His lips barely moved. Poison. Merchant must have slipped. Something. Mira's hands tightened around his shoulders. How do I fix it? He whispered a name one she didn't recognize. A bloom. Orange. Glowing veins. Grows only on your world. Her heart dropped. The only cure was back on Triel, her home. The jungle she had been taken from. The place no human dared return to. I'll go, she said. Kaylin gripped her wrist. It's too dangerous. They'll see you. I don't care, she said. You saved me, now I save you. She packed quickly, knife, water, nothing more. She borrowed his old ship. It sputtered, but it flew by nightfall. She reached the jungle moon. The moment she stepped out of the ship, memories rushed in sharp leaves. Deep shadows, the cries of beasts, the smell of life and death mixed in the air. She didn't flinch. She ran barefoot through the trees like she had never left. She knew where to find the bloom. High cliffs beneath the light of twin moons near the roots of the whispering trees. Climbed without ropes. Bled on the rocks. Bit down on pain. And there it was, the flower. Orange, glowing faintly. Veins pulsing like it breathed. She held it with shaking hands. Then the slavers came. Not the same ones, but the same greed. They had followed her trail, thinking. She was lost prey. She ran, they chased. But Mira knew the land better than anyone. She dove through roots, slid under vines, vanished into fog. And when they thought they had cornered her, she leapt down from the trees and roared. She didn't run this time. She fought, not like a caged girl, but like a queen of the jungle. When she returned to the shelter, Kaelin was barely breathing. She crushed the flower, mixed the glowing sap with water, fed it to him drop by drop. Then she sat beside him and didn't sleep. When he finally opened his eyes, it was almost dawn. "Mira," he whispered. "I'm here," she said. He reached up and touched her cheek. "You came back." "Always," she whispered. He sat up slowly, still weak but alive. "You went home?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "I brought it with me." She opened her hand and showed him a folded leaf. Inside it was a second seed from the bloom. He smiled. "You're amazing," she shrugged. "You taught me." They sat in silence for a while. No need to speak, just breathing the same air. Finally, Kaelin asked, "Why did you do all that? You could have let me go." Mira looked at him, her eyes steady. "Because when you bought me, you didn't buy a thing. You gave me back my soul." He opened his mouth to reply, but she leaned forward and pressed her forehead gently to his. "In my tribe," she said softly, "this means you are part of me." His hand rested against her back. "And you are part of me too." Rain started. Again, light as feathers. That evening, they planted the second seed outside the shelter. Myra dug the hole with her own hands. Kaelin poured water gently into the soil. They didn't say anything. The plant would grow fast and strong. Like her, she wasn't just someone's rescued prize now. She wasn't the wild girl in chains. She was the girl who chose to stay. The girl who saved her savior. The girl who rebuilt her story with her own hands. And in Kaelin's heart, she wasn't a purchase anymore. She was everything.